The Agent Smith effect. In the movie The Matrix, Agent Smith has the ability to enter anybody at any time, and that often happens when the Matrix is threatened by Neo. This scenario is a reflection of our real world. For example, you're having a conversation with a friend and everything is fine until you mention something like the bullshit is a psyop. Now watch what happens. Up pops Agent Smith to replace the person you were just having a conversation with to attack you because all truth threatened the Matrix. Most people have had the Agent Smith Matrix programming since birth. These programmed people become the great guardians of the Matrix, protectors of the code, the police of mind control, and enforcers of the indoctrination which holds together our false concept of reality like superglue. Nostradamus wrote in the year 1551 this: there will be a twin year, 2020, from which will arise a queen, Corona, who will come from the east, China, and who will spread a plague, the bullshit, in the darkness of night, on a country with 7 hills, Italy, and will transform the twilight of men into dust, death, to destroy and ruin the world. It will be the end of the world economy as you know it. Anyone disagree with that? Wearing a mask signals one of two things. I have been manipulated to live in irrational fear, or I am willing to be controlled by a socialist agenda. Or you just don't wear them, like I don't. But it's a personal choice, and if you believe that a paper mask will stop a virus which is so small you can only see it when you look under a microscope, well, how it feels when you're trying to explain the corrupt system to some people. Before I move on to the next thing, I'd like to point out that recently the football matches have started again, and between two quite high ranked English Premier League teams, and after the match one of the players developed pneumonia, a version of the bullshit. So therefore every member of both teams should instantly be on a 14-day lockdown. However, this isn't happening because the government have now come out and said that you need to spend 15 minutes intimately with someone with the bullshit to catch the bullshit. Well, that's strange because we've been told to keep apart by 2 meters and wear face masks. So I've got a question for you here. If face masks work, why do we need social distancing? If social distancing works, why do we need face masks? If face masks and social distancing both work, why have we been imprisoned for 3 months? Answers on a postcard. Did you know a 2000 film titled V for Vendetta is about a totalitarian dictatorship that gains its power by creating a society of fear due to an alleged virus spreading throughout the world? In the film, the media pushes fear-based propaganda on the television screen of every household and of the city streets. The authoritarian dictator promises security, but not freedom. The constant theme of this is for your safety. It's for your safety. Is repeated throughout the film. Most importantly, the film ends with society waking up and the corrupt fascist regime is dismantled. What year is the film set? 2020. Good slave code. Stay at home when told to. Q. Where and how you are told to. Wear a face mask when commanded to. Clap and kneel on command like a good slave. Go out only when given explicit permission. Socialize with others only when allowed. Allow yourself to be tracked 24/7. Willingly destroy your business and income. Always be subservient to those in authority. Spy and tittle-tattle on non-slaves at all times. Do everything you are told to do without question. Human, obedience, training, initiative. Are you a good slave yet? Thank you, government, for protecting me from a flu by completely destroying my livelihood, my job, my income, my marriage, my family, my health, my freedoms and liberties. Bullshit, poison, lockdown. Thanks a lot. Now, if you think back to George Orwell's 1984, he basically said that the coming dictatorship, the New World Order for want of a better term, would be like a boot stamping on the face of a human forever. And all you idiots out there facilitating this by wearing masks, by not socialising, by social distancing, are bringing that into our timeline unless you wake up and smell the coffee and realise you have all been had by a scam by the ever trustworthy government. What a shock. Not. Checking everyone's temperature. To help ensure that Furniture Village stores are safe places to visit and work at, we're taking the temperature of every customer as soon as they come into the store. We're also checking the temperature of every employee daily. If you have any of the symptoms of bullshit listed on the NHS bullshit website, please visit us another day. Or don't go at all, because that is total dictatorship bullshit. Some of the worst looting the world has seen. Our world should know. Bitch, please. Real pandemics don't require faulty virus models, rigged test results, inaccurate reporting and manipulated death statistics, but a psychological operation does. What should I do with all these masks I bought from China? I'll make masks mandatory. And it also takes them back to when they were slaves, even though they're still slaves now, but they just don't know it yet. They closed your business. They closed your church. They closed your parks. They closed your beaches. They banned funerals. They banned graduations. They made you wear masks. They banned dads in delivery rooms. But they allow this? You are being played time and time again. And if you can't see it, you're brainwashed as well. Clone lives matter. Guess who hasn't stayed home, hasn't wore a mask everywhere and hasn't caught the bullshit? That would be me. And those that are probably listening to this channel. I have a condition that prevents me wearing a mask. It's called intelligence. Basically, someone's done the research. And all these idiots that are wearing masks, you are a disgrace to humanity. Tell me this doesn't make more sense. White privilege. The ability to suffer life's universal indignities without blaming another ethnic group. Because we're white privilege, you know. Except the only white privilege is the 0.1%. And maybe a few percent of their friends and relatives. But for the rest of us, we are slaves just like everyone else, but we don't blame it on other coloured skin. We stand up and face it and realise the real enemy of humanity is those that are controlling the system. You had a problem with it because it was a bullshit religion thing. Why don't you have a problem with it now it's a bullshit health thing? Slave shackles from 1852 with the Freemason symbol clearly imprinted on it. But don't worry, it's not like they'd ever do that again, is it? Wake up. You aren't sick. G5, MSG, pesticides, glyphosate, towers, Zogloft, fluoride, chemtrails, cell phones, aspartame, smart meters, Xanax. You're being poisoned. My daughter, 19-year-old, healthy, frontline worker at a huge grocery store chain, started feeling sick about 2 weeks ago. Side and back pain, nausea, chest pain, primary doc centre for chest x-ray, something lit up on right side, sent for MRI, CAT scan, ultrasound on back and abdomen areas, nothing. While at work, was unable to breathe, chest pain, rushed to ER, quarantined, tested for bullshit, young. By herself, because no one can be with her. Turns out it's pleurisy, an infection of the outside of the lining of the lungs. They basically tell her it's because she has been wearing a mask for over 8 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week, breathing in her own bacteria, carbon dioxide, caused an infection, and now she is in severe pain. Has to be off work with no pay. But you won't see that on social media. She's 19, healthy, and now is bedbound and struggling to breathe. Antibiotics, steroids, breathing treatments. Still wearing a mask? Then you are 100% brainwashed. From the book, The Devil's Letters to His Nephew, 1942. And how did you manage to bring so many souls to hell at that time? Because of fear. Ah, yes. Excellent strategy. Old and always current, but what were they afraid of? Fear of being tortured, fear of war, fear of hunger. No, fear of getting sick. But then, no one else got sick at that time. No? Yes, they were sick. I'm sorry, nobody else was dying. Yes, they died, but there was no cure for the disease. There was. Then I don't understand. Since no one else believed and taught about external life and external death, they thought they had only that life, and they clung to it with all their strength, even if it cost them their affection. They did not hug or greet each other. They had no human contact for days and days. Their money, they lost their jobs, spent all their savings, and still thought themselves lucky to be prevented from earning their bread. Their intelligence one day, the press said one thing and the next day it contradicted itself. And still they believed it all. Their freedom, they did not leave their houses, did not walk, did not visit their relatives. It was a big concentration camp for voluntary prisoners. Voluntary prisoners! They accepted everything, as long as they could overcome their miserable lives one more day. They no longer had the slightest idea that he, and only he, is the one who gives life and ends it. It was like that, as easy as it had ever been. From the book Letters of the Devil to His Nephew by C.S. Lewis, the Christian author of the Chronicles of Narnia, the book was published in 1942. But it's just a coincidence. Nothing to worry about. You keep wearing your mask and isolating yourself and destroying your own immune system. Because nothing's bad's going to happen if you get your own immune system destroyed and so weakened that even a common cold can kill you. Oh, sorry, I digress. Sent from a friend in Luton. Neighbourhood enforcement. Enforcement is where they force you to do something against your will. And who paid for it? You did! Well done, you good slaves. One rule for them: MPs break social distancing rules whilst queuing in Parliament. No masks, no gloves, and standing side by side. Members of Parliament who make the laws break their own as they seem oblivious to the pandemic around them. Images show MPs who earn a minimum salary of £81,932 per year, plus expenses, which are often a lot more than that, from the taxpayer, standing in queues side by side talking. They were queuing to vote on Jacob Rees-Mogg's idea to scrap the remote parliament and return to the loud, packaged parliament we are so used to seeing. In a kick to the teeth of NHS staff and thousands who have died of some bullshit or other in the UK, the MPs voted yes to returning to a crowded parliament. Maybe that's because they know it's all bullshit. This would mean going against social distancing measures that were these MPs set out to the public. This was evidence, as not only did they vote in favour of Rees-Mogg's plan by 261 to 163 to return to a normal lobby, but as they stood to queue, it was evident many of the hundreds there did not stick to any social distancing guidelines and chat and laughed as if nothing had happened over the last 3 months, because to them it hadn't, because they knew it was a scam from the word go. Mr. Rees-Mogg is the same man who laid back and stretched his legs out in Parliament during a debate in a cocksure manner, which is evident amongst the wings. Leaders of the House of Commons, Jacob Rees-Mogg, said MPs ought to return, arguing that the total number of the estate will not increase significantly because lawmakers' staff will continue to work from home. He added that returning to the den of iniquity will improve communication between MPs and ministers and will be able to screw the public even more, and that politics is better done face to face. With MPs present in Westminster rather than scattered hither and thither, voters' interests will be better represented, he said. There you go. They're telling you it's bullshit, but you still distance yourselves. Wake up! BBC crisis. Panic for Beeb as 82,000 ditch TV licence, total drops to lowest in years. Pressure on the British Boy Buggering Corporation has increased as thousands have ditched their TV licence due to the rise of streaming services. Well, I wouldn't watch any of them either, to be honest with you, but whatever. The number of TV licences has fallen by 82,000 in 5 months leading up to this March. Overall, there are now 25,525,000 homes with TV licences, down from 25,607,000 last November. Although TV licence uptake has increased over the last decade, the number represents the lowest figure since 2014-15. And if you're still paying for that, you're paying for your own brainwashing. In the Freedom of Information request from the Times, the new numbers represent increasing pressure on the broadcasting following a peak of in 2017-18 of over 25,960 brain dead morons. With streaming services such as Netflix, Amazon Prime and now Disney Plus, the BBC has faced increasing pressure to retain its younger audience. A BBC spokesman said, "I couldn't give a shit." The BBC is the most used media organisation in the UK. 91% of the adult population and 8 out of 10 young people use the BBC every week. And if that's true, you're even more brainwashed than I thought you were. Department of Justice goes after Google's comment section. Trump admin to propose Section 230 rollback. The DOJ just escalated its burgeoning feud with Silicon Valley by introducing new legislation plan meant to make certain changes proposed in a Trump executive order signed last month permanent, including a measure to strip tech giants of liability shields for activity and speech that happens on their platforms. In effect, the DOJ proposal would roll back protections centered in Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996, something that's gaining bipartisan support, albeit for vastly different reasons. The proposal calls for the rolling back of legal protection that online platforms have enjoyed for more than 20 years to try and make tech companies more responsible in how they police their content. CNET reports the proposed reforms to be announced later on Wednesday are designed to require social media platforms like Twitter, Faceache and YouTube, owned by Google parent Alphabet, to be more active in policing sites for illicit or harmful content, while also requiring them to be more consistent in decisions to remove content they find objectionable. If adopted by Congress and passed, the bill would effectively make some of the changes outlined in an executive order signed by Trump late last month. The law of the land. It would roll back protections for those digital platforms that engage in active political censorship of users on some platforms. Because of this, it represents a serious escalation of the Trump administration fight against big tech, which President Trump has long criticized for discriminating against conservatives and their ideas. Norway abandons bullshit tracking app over privacy fears. Norway's health authority suspended the use of its bullshit tracing app and deleted all location data collected amid new privacy criticism from the Norwegian Data Protection Authority, DPA, reported the local. The Norwegian Institute of Public Health, NIPH, launched the smartphone app Smitterstop, Infection Stop, in April, was used to collect location data on bullshit carriers. The country's data privacy watchdog raised several red flags with the app on Friday, indicating that it's too invasive now that bullshit infection and death rates have slowed. Smitterstop is a very invasive measure, even in an exceptional situation where society is trying to fight a pandemic, DPA said in a statement. The legality of Smitterstop depends on the social benefits. The NIPH responded to DPA's criticism of the app and said, "We don't agree with DPA's evaluation, but feel it is necessary to delete all data and put work on hold as a result of this. We will, as a result, weaken an important part of the preparedness against the spread of a made-up bullshit. As we now lose time for developing the test and testing the app," Nipper said it's in a statement. Norway has mostly avoided the bullshit versus other countries in Europe. The country has only seen 8,639 confirmed cases with 242 deaths. At the moment, there are only 16 people hospitalized with the bullshit, which just 4 in intensive care. But let's lock down the whole population for something less deadly than the common cold, shall we? Yes, because the public are that brainwashed now and that dumbed down, they will accept it and think of it for the greater good. The greater good of who is what you should be asking. Enraged Italians abandon masks, denounce pandemic as a scam. Meet the orange vest. Hundreds of Italian demonstrators gathered in Rome's Piazza del Popolo on Tuesday, ditching their masks in a protest against the Italian government's lockdown restrictions aimed at controlling the spread of bullshit. The group, which calls themselves the Orange Vests, is led by retired Carabinieri General Antonio Pappalardo, who doesn't believe children should be made to wear masks according to time. Refusing to wear a mask himself, Pappalardo said, "These lungs mine. I will take care of my lungs. Breathing is sacred." The people packing the square didn't adhere to social distancing guidelines set by the government. Good on them. Someone with a backbone. Pappalardo portrayed such containment measures as an infringement of freedoms, which they are. Other speakers at the protest asserted that the pandemic never existed, which of course it didn't, it was a common flu, and alleged that politicians had played it up to enhance their own powers, which they absolutely have. And if you can't see it, check to see if you've been brainwashed. Do you watch the TV? Do you read newspapers? If the answer to any of them questions is yes, you have been brainwashed. The UK Bullshit Act 2020 is null and void. ER editor. The following document is actually a pledge drive on the site Crowd Justice by a legal group calling themselves the People's Brexit. Because we haven't left it, but Europe, by the way. You do know that, don't you? You didn't know that either. Why do you think they brought it in at the time they did? It is an excellent and succinct read, nailing as it does the UK government having stepped outside its authority and existing legal act of 1984, strange year, wouldn't you think, and 2004 to produce one of the that is basically illegal. Among other things, the petition brings into question the very existence of bullshit, as not even having been established according to well-established postulates, the uselessness of the PCR diagnostic test, and the absurd modelling of Neil Ferguson, who should be in jail for crimes against humanity. Every time he's done a modelling, it's been so wrong. Well, just look at now. Because of him, that you dumbasses out there that obeyed their rules, locked yourselves down, wore a mask, wore gloves, because of Neil Ferguson, who should probably really be executed for his crimes against humanity. Tilbrook is the name of the solicitors attached to the appeal. We find this Twitter link for them, as well as a Twitter link to Robin Tilbrook, who is the leader of the English Democrats. We remind readers of a piece we published a while back by UK barrister Francis Hoare, who created his own case against the UK government and is well worth reading. See, a disproportionate interference, the bullshit regulations and the ECHR Francis Hoare QC. Doing a search for this group, we came across the site called Lawyers for Britain. See link. As usual, links in the description if you want to go and check out any more of this stuff that you're seeing. The Bullshit Act 2020 is null and void, the People's Brexit. We are a legal research and campaign group, and right now we are fighting for the democracy and rights of the people of the UK. Our judicial review legal process has commenced. Thank you all as so much for your backing and your lovely inspiring comments. We need to unite to fight against what has turned into a dictatorship in the UK, governed by fear, confusion and false information. I agree. We are the People's Brexit, a group of solicitors, legal researchers and campaigners. We have been extensively researching the current legal situation since the illegal, unlawful lockdown deprived us all of our democracy, human rights and freedoms. We have now established that the Bullshit Act 2020 is null and void. There are many reasons for this, the main one being that S1 brackets 1 of the Act defines bullshit as being bullshit, or its other name, SARS-CoV-2. However, by virtue of the fact that it is not legally, medically, or scientifically recognized as a disease or poison, it cannot be legislated against, and this makes the whole act null and void. The reason for this is that bullshit has not been subject to the 130-year established legal, medical and scientific procedure that recognises if it is actually a disease or that or not, which is known as the Koch postulates. This involves purifying and isolating the disease, which they've not done, or bullshit, and proving that it actually causes the illness that it's claimed that it does. The government has acted ultra-virus, acting beyond one's legal powers, and against the rule of law. Further, there are a multitude of procedural and legal errors made when the government enacted this legislation, including enforcing the act on the 23rd of March, 4 days after they downgraded it from infectious to non-infectious, I'll hasten to add, and I might pop the link in there just so you can see it. With a lockdown before it actually became law with royal assent on the 25th of March. In addition, the Act facilitates the misreporting of deaths from various illnesses that it is claimed are also suffering with bullshit, as doctors are told to just use guesswork as to cause of death, which is what they normally do anyway. This has been happening since the 10th of March. Long before the Act became law, and allows the bullshit statistics to increase rapidly. There is no doubt the figures are being manipulated, and any excuse mortality is due to the terrible inhumane suffering, fear and neglect caused by a lockdown itself, with life-saving treatment cancelled and people too terrified to seek urgent medical help. MPs demand full review after do not resuscitate form found in patient's bag. Inversely's MSP has demanded a probe after a nurse found a do not resuscitate form among her elderly mother's soiled underwear before the OAP was placed in a Greenock bullshit ward. Stuart Macmillan has spoken out after the Telegraph revealed last week how Leslie Roberts was left angered beyond words at discovering the document which she says her family have never consulted about. The find came after the 79-year-old mum, Letitia, had been discharged from Inverclyde Royal, and just hours before she had to be readmitted as a result of her health worsening. Nurse Roberts said, "I found out that she was being admitted to the ward that potential bullshit patients are taken, and this was non-negotiable." She is almost 80 and in the bracket of people most at risk, yet they are putting her into a ward that is the main receiving hub. The claims and allegations that Nurse Roberts' mother was sent home without a full assessment being carried out as to her needs were not denied by NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde, who issued an apology to the family. MSP Mr Macmillan is now calling for a full review into what went wrong. He said, "The information provided to me by Ms Roberts highlights serious concerns and allegations, and they must be scrutinised. I expect NHS GGC to examine these thoroughly and robustly to engage with Miss Roberts and her family at every juncture. Our NHS is a public service and much loved by society. Everyone wants it to succeed. However, it must not and cannot be beyond scrutiny and challenge. A Scottish Government spokesman said NHS GGC have rightly issued an apology to the family for the distress caused and are already in contact with the family to ensure that their concerns are addressed fully. We have been clear that no one should ever feel pressured in any way whatsoever into giving their consent to a do not attempt CPR form. When difficult conversations are needed with people and their families regarding their care wishes should they become seriously unwell, those discussions should always be handled with the utmost compassion, care and tact. The bullshit outbreak has brought about absolutely no change to the use of do not attempt CPR forms in the Scottish NHS and no change in the advice issued to GPs about their use. But it's one heck of a way to start killing the elderly, isn't it? Yes, YouTube's at it again. Hi, Mark Salon. As you may know, our community guidelines describe which content we allow and what we don't allow on YouTube. YouTube, have you had enough of the lies yet? Was flagged to us for review. Upon review, we've determined that it violates our guidelines and we removed it from YouTube. You can read the rest if you want to, but it's the same shit that's going on everywhere. It's, well, you know what it is. Bullshit. Airport tests may provide early travel quarantine release. Yes, do as you're told and you might be allowed to go on holiday this year. Make sure you've been tested and you might be allowed to go abroad. If not, you stay locked down. Because we live in a dictatorship. It's just that most don't seem to be seeing it yet. Passengers arriving at UK airports could soon be able to have the same type of saliva swab tests used by the NHS to screen for the bullshit. Companies planning a trial of the scheme hope a negative result will allow early release from the government's 14-day travel quarantine. People will have to pay around £140 for a test booked online before travel. So, £10 a day to avoid 14 days. It's all about robbing us and keeping us locked down. The government said the quarantine system aims to keep the transmission rate down and prevent a second wave. But like we said earlier, if the masks work, if the social distancing work, why are we locked down? BBC News has been told that a trial is expected to begin in a couple of weeks at a major UK airport. Well, the trial should be taking place, and it's of all the government MPs that have ever voted for this shit, they should all be on trial for crimes against humanity. Every single one of them. And the death penalty should not be ruled out. The aim is to initially test 500 passengers a day. Who's exempt from the quarantine rules? 5 unanswered questions on the quarantine rules. UK set to relax quarantine rules for some countries. But not here. We're staying locked up because that's what a dictatorship does. Under the proposals, passengers who visit an airport clinic after immigration to take a test and self-isolate at home until they receive the result. A negative result could take as little as 5 hours. However, the aim will be to notify every patient within 24 hours. However, there is no test for the bullshit. They can test for the common cold, absolutely. There is no test for the bullshit. And they're claiming this is a win-win. Jason Holt, boss of ground handling firm Swissport UK, which is one of 2 companies involved, described the scheme as a win-win. Yes, a win for them and a win for them some more. And a loss for everyone else. We accept that the quarantine is in place, he said. This will complement it and help put UK aviation back on its feet. If they, the passenger, were bullshit negative, we would ask the government to consider them to be free from the quarantine, and they would have 13 days plus avoiding the quarantine. The polymerase chain reaction PCR swab test being used is the type in operation in the NHS facilities across the UK, and as previously mentioned, is absolutely 1000% useless. Nurses will carry out the airport swab tests at clinics run by medical firm Collison. The company says the trial is about modifying the quarantine. People will be able to go on holiday again, said Dr. Simon Worrell, Collison's Global Medical Director. Corporations taking the shit over again. Georgia kicks off chilling door-to-door bullshit blood collection. Analysis opinions. Let the government press bullshit-tied blood collections of citizens begin. And your DNA with that. Let's not forget, your DNA will be in there as well. And begin they have. They have in Georgia at least, where the state's Department of Public Health recently announced, in cooperation with both Fulton County and Dacleb County's Board of Health, that to learn more about the spread of bullshit, which doesn't exist, because they haven't been able to identify it, so it can't exist, an investigation has commenced, and it's an investigation that's leading government officials to make random stops at randomly selected residents and ask random citizens for, get this, their blood. Citizens' DNA in the hands of unelected government officials. What could go wrong there? Specifically, Georgia's health want to know the percentage of people in the community who have been infected with the bullshit that causes bullshit. A statement of the State Department of Public Health webpage reads, except there is no test for the bullshit, but they can test for the common cold. And if you've had it, you'll test positive for the common cold. It's a psyop.
If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. The lie can be maintained only for such time as the state can shield the people from the political, economic and/or military consequences of the lie. It thus becomes vitally important for the state to use all of its powers to repress dissent. For the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus by extension, the truth is the greatest enemy of the state. Joseph Goebbels.
The vast majority of people with symptoms have only mild illness. Chris Whitty, Chief Medical Officer. If it looks like fascism and it sounds like fascism, you can be certain it's fascism. But I saw it on TV. When you get arrested for not wearing a mask by people not wearing a mask, you realise this is not about the bullshit. It's about control. Do as you're told, or we'll send the boys in black round to beat the crap out of you. The idolatry of the Roman Catholic Church. And if you can't see what's going on, I took their milk. I took their dinners. I'll take their lives. Did you know Greta Thunberg is Soros's granddaughter? Well, well, well. Who'd have thought? A Muslim, a transvestite, a rapist and Satan walk into a bar. Actually, the Muslim's also a Satan as well. In fact, they're all Satan. But we know who they was really on about. The doctor would like a stool sample, a urine sample and a sperm sample. What did she say? They want your underwear. Department of Health is looking to hire couples married for 7 years or more to educate people on social distancing.
Dennis Healy. World events do not occur by accident. They are made to happen, whether it is to do with national issues or commerce, and most of them are staged and managed by those who hold the purse strings.